One thing you notice as you're traveling from an eastern state to a western state is how different everything feels. For some reason, everything in the West just feels bigger. While we were driving to Seattle, we listened to Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson and the Olympians series on audiobook. And at one point in the story, Percy, a native of New York City, is in Los Angeles. And he makes the point that where everything in New York is pretty close and compact, Los Angeles is a little more sprawling and spread out. And having now visited Los Angeles, I can kind of see his point. The West is spread out more, which is why you can drive for so long in a state like North Dakota or Montana and not see much in the way of civilization. As we crossed from the nothingness of North Dakota to the nothingness of Montana, I could see why it was called Big Sky Country. It's kind of hard to convey in camera shots, but the sky really does seem bigger. Rocky crags started to appear with more frequency, and eventually, mountains loomed in the distance. Where the nothing of North Dakota was largely agricultural, the nothing of Montana was largely industrial, with a lot of factories and so on. In fact, Montana is home to the Berkeley Pit in Butte, but more on that bit of insanity later. On our way through Montana, we stopped in Billings and hiked up to what's called the Boot Hill Cemetery, a small field of largely unmarked graves dedicated to the settlers who died with their boots on. It was a rougher and more dangerous time, and I started thinking about some of those early Western travelers. In a way, it makes some sense that the cities of the East are closer together than those of the West. I mean, obviously we've been there longer and have had more time to colonize, but a lot of the people who arrived on the Eastern Shore were traveling in large groups, people escaping persecution and the like, people who would want to stick together as much as possible on this strange new land. The settlers of the West were altogether different. A lot of them were explorers, loners who wanted their space, people who worked primarily for themselves and who died with their boots on. In a way, it's no wonder the West was so huge. People who came out here were looking for bigger and better things, looking to escape the claustrophobic cities of the East and spread out. Frequently during the trip, we would wonder what it must have been like for those first explorers to be traveling along this seemingly endless grassy plain and then boom, the Badlands. Or an endless wheat field and then boom, the Rocky Mountains. There had to have been an appeal to the loneliness of it all, the seclusion, to say nothing of the resources. The West was just screaming to be colonized. And because of our naturally curious nature, it was. And between the cities and factories and various spots of civilization, you can still get a sense of the loneliness and seclusion that must have attracted so many people.